Picture this, an entire family, hidden away in a secret bunker for nearly 10 years, living a life beyond the reach of society and time. They were told that the outside world no longer existed, erased by a cataclysmic event that wiped out humanity. Their entire existence revolved around the belief that they were the last survivors, trapped in a world of their father's creation, a world where escape was a concept too distant to even consider. With no knowledge of modern life, no connection to technology or the outside world, they were left in isolation, disconnected from everything that could offer them a glimpse of reality beyond their father's twisted narrative. Their father, Garrett Van Dorsten, held total control over them, convincing them that he was the Messiah, the savior of mankind. He framed their entire lives with a dangerous belief that he, and only he, could guide them through the end of days. The walls of the bunker they lived in became their universe, a universe where every breath they took was under his rule. Every day was a battle not just for survival, but for obedience to a man who saw himself as the divine authority. There was no room for questioning, no hope for freedom. He had erased them from society's records, eliminating any trace of their existence from the world. They lived in a purgatory of his making, bound by fear, faith, and a warped sense of duty. A reality where every lie was woven into their daily lives, where truth and freedom were as distant as the stars. And the most chilling part? This was all real. Not a fictional tale, not a twisted fantasy, but the haunting reality of the ghost family of Ruinerwold. It's 2019, in the remote, quiet village of Ruinerwold, hidden deep in the serene hills of Holland, where time moves as slowly as the rolling fields surrounding it. A small, dimly lit bar is preparing to close for the night. The air, heavy with the familiar scent of beer and wood, hums with the low murmur of the few remaining locals. Outside, the quiet of the village presses in, the soft chirping of crickets a stark contrast to the social chatter inside. The regulars, a mix of weathered farmers and locals who've spent their lives here, finish their drinks, unaware that the night is about to take an unexpected turn. As the bartender begins wiping down glasses, the door creaks open. A young man stumbles inside, disoriented and lost, like someone who's been cut off from the world for years. His clothes are torn and filthy, his hair unkempt, and his face is pale, almost ghostly, with deep shadows under his eyes that tell a story of unimaginable isolation. His movements are jerky and uncertain, and he looks like he hasn't seen the sun, or any other human being, during the long stretch of time that has marked his life. His eyes dart around the room, scanning the space as if seeing it for the first time, unsure of what to make of the world he's suddenly stepped into. The man makes his way to the bar, collapsing onto a stool without a word. His hands tremble as he orders a drink, and the bartender, though intrigued, says nothing, simply handing him a cold beer. The young man doesn't hesitate. He lifts the bottle to his lips and gulps it down, as if he's starved for more than just alcohol. One beer, then another, and another. 5 in total, consumed in a matter of minutes. Each gulp, a desperate attempt to drown whatever thoughts are racing through his mind. The room remains silent as the locals watch him, their curiosity piqued. But no one dares to approach him. Something is off about the young man. Something they can't quite place. He doesn't belong here. His presence is a mystery, and the atmosphere grows tense, thick with unspoken questions. As the last beer is drained, the young man sets the bottle down with a sigh. His hands tremble. His shoulders slump as if the weight of 1,000 unspoken words is finally crashing down on him. Then, in a voice that barely rises above a whisper, he speaks the words that will unravel everything. I ran away. My father kept me and my siblings locked up for 10 years. The room goes still. The air in the bar grows heavy, suffocating. No one could have prepared for what they just heard. The reality of his statement hangs in the air like a thick fog, creeping into every corner of the room. The few who were left in the bar freeze, their hearts racing, eyes wide with disbelief. No one speaks. The truth has landed, and with it, a horrifying revelation. What was this young man talking about? What kind of life had he lived? The room is silent, the gravity of the words hanging in the air. The bartender, his face pale, takes a step back, his mind struggling to process what he's just heard. The other patrons exchange glances, their confusion quickly turning into fear. They didn't know it then, but this was only the beginning of a story that would shake the village to its very core. The young man's words were the first domino to fall in a tale of terror, isolation, and a family locked away from the world for nearly a decade. The ghost family of Ruinerwold was no longer a mystery. For years, the villagers of Ruinerwold couldn't shake the unsettling feeling surrounding the farmhouse hidden at the outskirts of their quiet community. Nestled deep in the woods, shielded from the outside world by towering trees and imposing fences, the house seemed to live in its own isolated realm. The security surrounding the property was unlike anything the locals had ever seen. Cameras on every corner, locked gates that seemed impenetrable, and watchful eyes that seemed to guard the house like a fortress. It was a place of mystery, a secret that no one could truly comprehend. Rumors began to swirl, and with every passing year, the mystery of the farmhouse grew darker. Some of the locals speculated it was a drug den, hidden away in the forest, a place where shady deals took place under the cover of night. Others whispered about trafficking rings, possibly even a serial killer's lair. It wasn't just an abandoned house, it was a strange, isolated fortress that seemed to invite fear and curiosity in equal measure. But the truth, when it was finally revealed, was far worse than anyone could have imagined. Behind the fortified walls of that house lived Garrett Van Dorsten, a man who had convinced himself he was the chosen one, the Messiah sent to guide his family through the end of times. Garrett wasn't just any ordinary man. He was a man trapped in his own delusions, one who had twisted reality to fit his vision of power and control. To him, the outside world was irrelevant, a place that no longer existed. He held the belief that humanity had perished in some cataclysmic event, and his family, his children, were the last survivors. Garrett kept his 6 children hidden away in a secret bunker deep within the farmhouse. The bunker was more than just a basement. It was a place of confinement, a prison built with walls not just of concrete but of manipulation and control, isolated from everything they knew and every possible escape. The children lived in complete ignorance of the world outside. They had no contact with anyone beyond the house. Their very existence was erased from the world's records. There were no birth certificates, no schooling, no socializing with other children, nothing. They were ghosts, their lives buried under the weight of their father's delusions. He convinced them that the world outside had ended in some apocalyptic disaster. The only reality that mattered was the one he had created, a world where only his family survived, and in this new world, only he held the truth. He created a false reality, one where his word was the law and his power was unquestionable. It wasn't just a family, it was a cult with Garrett as its sole prophet. His role was sacred, and no one could challenge his authority. After the death of his wife, Hin Moon, from an untreated illness, his delusions took an even darker turn. Instead of grieving the loss of his wife, Garrett saw her death as proof of his divine mission. He believed that her spirit had transcended death and would return to guide him. But this time, the spirit wasn't going to enter another human being. It would possess the body of his 12-year-old son, Adino. Adino, forced to take on the role of his late mother, was made to incorporate Hin's spirit. This was no ordinary possession. It was a full spiritual and physical transformation, as the boy was commanded to live as his mother, to act as his father's wife. What should have been a time of innocence and growth for a 12-year-old boy quickly became a living nightmare, as the boundaries between life and death, spirit and flesh, were completely erased. The child was trapped, forced into a role that no child should ever be subjected to. The lines between reality and madness blurred, turning what should have been a childhood of learning and joy into a horrifying prison. Israel, the son who finally managed to break free, had always felt a gnawing sense of unease deep within him. The air in the bunker was stifling, oppressive, and the endless isolation wore him down. He couldn't shake the feeling that there was something profoundly wrong with the world his father had constructed. The truth, as dictated by Garrett's twisted teachings, seemed so far removed from what Israel instinctively knew to be reality. The walls of the bunker, thick and suffocating, were a constant reminder of his entrapment, both physically and mentally. But one day, everything changed. When Garrett, his father, had a stroke and was left bedridden, it was as if the very foundation of their confined existence began to crumble. For the first time in years, Israel saw a chink in the armor of the fortress his father had built around them. The illusion of invincibility that Garrett had projected over their lives began to crack. And in that moment of vulnerability, Israel stumbled upon something that would alter the course of his life forever: a hidden cell phone. His heart raced as he held it in his trembling hands, unsure of what he would find, but knowing that his entire world was about to shift. With shaky fingers, he powered it on, and as the screen flickered to life, he was greeted by an overwhelming flood of information: news, pictures, glimpses of a life he had been kept from for so long. The revelation was staggering. The world had not ended. People were living, laughing, loving, experiencing life beyond the confines of their isolated prison. And in that moment, Israel realized the horrifying truth. His entire existence, the reality that had been fed to him for so many years, was nothing but a cruel lie. His father's warped narrative had been his world, but it was just that: fiction. Despite this newfound knowledge, Israel's first escape attempt ended in failure. He had no idea how to navigate the outside world, having been kept in isolation for so long. The world was foreign, dangerous, and beyond anything he had ever known. But even after failing, Israel refused to give up. He knew he had to try again. His second attempt was different. This time, he succeeded. The night was his ally as he made his way out of the confines of the bunker. And that night, the police arrived. They had no idea what they were about to uncover when they found the bunker. They were met with a scene so horrifying it would haunt them for the rest of their careers. Inside, they discovered the remaining children, malnourished, terrified, and abandoned. They were living on hay, sleeping in filthy sleeping bags, their eyes wide with fear and confusion. They had been trapped in a nightmare, their lives frozen in time. The moment was one of shocking revelation, a truth so disturbing that it shattered the foundation of everything the authorities had believed they knew about the world. It was a moment that would not only change the lives of the children, but would ripple through the village and the nation, revealing the unimaginable horrors that had been hidden behind those walls for so long. Garrett Van Dorsten was arrested for his central role in the grotesque abuse and cruel captivity of his children, a case that shook the nation to its core. His arrest, however, did not bring the closure it should have. Despite the horror of his actions, Garrett's advanced age and deteriorating health became his shield, and as a result, he was never fully prosecuted for the full extent of his crimes. His physical condition became an unfortunate factor that complicated the legal proceedings, leaving the justice system powerless in the face of his rapidly declining health. The country watched as the man who had caused so much pain and suffering was allowed to slip away from accountability. Meanwhile, Joseph Brunner, a man who had played a significant role in aiding Garrett's twisted endeavors, was sentenced to 3 years in prison for his part in the abuses. His actions, though not as deeply rooted in the family's internal control, still made him complicit in the cruelty that occurred behind those locked doors. As the world outside learned of the depths of the family's suffering, the children, who had endured the worst of it, began to reclaim their lives. Some of them, still trapped by their past, continue to live with Garrett, unable to break free from the psychological hold he still exerts over them. But most of the children have been separated, taken into care, and slowly, painfully, they begin to rebuild what was stolen from them. For the older children, the ones who had managed to escape Garrett's nightmarish grip, the road to recovery is long and filled with obstacles. They work tirelessly to find a sense of normalcy, to carve out a new life that doesn't revolve around fear and manipulation. Yet the scars of their past remain, and the trauma they experienced has shaped them in ways that words can barely describe. the horrifying secret they lived with for years, their captivity, the twisted world they were forced to accept as reality, became known to the world as the Ghost Family of Holland. This name, forever etched in the history of the country, serves as a chilling reminder of the nightmare that unfolded quietly in the remote village of Ruinerwold, a place that was forever marked by the unimaginable suffering of the family that once lived there. If this story left you speechless, imagine what other dark and chilling cases are out there. If you haven't already, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new story. We delve into the most shocking, bizarre, and disturbing tales every week. If you want to keep the adrenaline going, check out our next video. It's another unbelievable story that you won't believe until you hear it. Until next time, take care of yourself and always remember to look out for each other.